Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the TeamMartek Hour, Joe Martek.
And here it is, the Dan and Joe Show, also called the Anti-Corona Beer Show. Oh, coronavirus. I get them confused.
I had a Corona beer the other night.
Did you really?
It was great, yeah.
So I've been told by bartenders that the sales of Corona beer are way down.
They are.
I get a kick out of that.
But did you hear where they had people in some Arabic country who were killing themselves, not intentionally, but who were told if they drink, commercial grade alcohol, it would kill the virus, and about 60 people died over there as a result of that. And now they have tequila manufacturers saying, hey, our tequila won't cure the corona, don't drink it because of the alcohol content in it and stuff. It's like snake oil salesmen.
I get a kick out of the whole thing, and we've all been talking about this for days, and we'll probably be talking about it for a couple more months. But the CDC says basically 56,000 people every year in America die from, let's take it, they used a broad category: colds, viruses,
right.
flus,
flu-like symptoms,
all of the same category. Now, if you get more specific, there have been 18,000 people die this season directly from the flu. Now, they don't know exactly how many, but that's the closest they can gauge, because some people just don't go to the doctor and they die, and they just label them, okay, that's a flu death, because when you look at the death certificate, they've got to have a reason on there.
Sure.
My old lady that died at 92, it was called failure to thrive.
Failure to breathe.
She just decided to quit, But, hey, most people have some kind of health condition that puts them under for the last minute.
It was interesting. Yesterday, Carol and I were at Lawnwood Regional Medical Center, and we were accepting a check for the Christmas kids. And it was very interesting walking into that hospital.
Was it deserted or full?
No, it was very intriguing. Two nurses greeted you outside in hazmat outfits and started asking you questions. Have you been traveling? Have you got a relative that's been traveling? And then it keeps going down the list. And then you go to the next person who will use that thermometer
right.
against your forehead. And the lady in front of me had a temperature. And she was going to go visit a patient, and they said, why don't you come back?
Now, what they should have said was, why don't you come get checked out? Don't send her back into the general population.
Yeah, they could have done that, too.
Yeah, they could have done that, I guess.
But, a person can have a 1 degree. You can be a 99-something, and that'd be normal for some people.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, no, you're right there.
Yeah.
You're right there. Yeah.
You just don't know. I mean, how often do you take your temperature? Almost never. How often do you check your blood pressure? Regularly, because one of the perks of getting old, we're supposed to have high blood pressure.
Yeah, well, they checked that, too.
Supposed to.
They checked that, too, before you walked into the building. I mean, it was really... it's like, okay, this is real now. When you see that,
I think it'll get better. You know what it reminds me of? I know it's kind of off topic, but you remember how we get all the bad water and we get all the algae blooms, and then all the public say, oh, God, we're getting the algae blooms again. And then it goes away. And we don't think about it for another 2 years till it comes back. Well, I have a feeling this virus will come back like all viruses and flus and stuff. It won't go away, but we won't be so upset over it.
What happens is this is a seasonal, quote, flu. All these flus, cold season, flu season is the magic word. October through May is the thing. And then summertime, kids open doors, windows, people start roaming around, and somehow or other the cold season, even though people still get cold and flu, just not as much.
Well, and Carol and I took flu shots this year. We got them.
And you got the flu.
And I got the flu, as you well know.
Yeah,
I was fighting it for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And, it was interesting because when she asked me, okay, you had the flu when, and did you have shortness of breath with that flu? And I thought, wow, she's really being thorough. But I mean, this was really interesting. That they
had a kid on the tube saying he got the corona flu. His symptoms were, he said, this is probably like a cold, but not as bad. I had no body aches. All I had was respiratory.
Have you ever had the flu and not had respiratory problems?
I have never had the flu,
Well,
except the Hong Kong flu back eons ago when I was in my 20s. That's the only flu.
What is the Hong Kong flu?
That was the
that was the old one. Yeah, I remember that. I had that.
I was so sick, I'm sure I was dying. So I go to the doctor. I couldn't walk. I get into the doctor's office. He says, you got the flu. And I said, no, I don't. I'm dying. He goes, no, you got the flu. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I wasted all this time and money to come in here to see you to tell me I've got the flu.
Well, what if you had pneumonia?
Well, it'd have been okay. Then I'd have felt better. Because
they could have gave you some stuff to help you.
He'd give me something to help me. But you can't do anything for a cold or the flu when you have it. You got to go.
Well, from what I understand, this coronavirus, and we're all spreading stuff we're not 100% sure of.
Right.
But I was told, and I read, where it has a quick, it doesn't take long for it to give you pneumonia.
Right.
And you have real massive respiratory distress, and that's what's killing people.
Well, they said this very simply. Every cold, every virus, every flu has a 3-day gestation period before it goes into the lungs. Then you get an upper respiratory problem, which could go to bronchitis or pneumonia.
And you guys know I fight with that and deal with that a lot.
Yeah.
So what I've been told over the years is, hey, drink a lot of water throughout the day, because that if you have that stuff, it gets it into your stomach, doesn't give it time to get into your esophagus and into your lungs. So don't wait till you have a dry mouth and all that kind of stuff.
I alternate with Corona
and water and the vodka.
Corona and water.
And Corona and water. Well, it kind of reminds me of Alan. Alan went on a 3-week cruise, and he said, boy, I sure wish we'd have got the coronavirus. I could have gone on for 6 months on that
6 months
cruise.
out there.
Good morning, everybody.
So did you leave your cabin at all?
There was no problem on the cruise at all, but interestingly enough, my friend Nancy went to Israel on Monday.
Wow.
And Netanyahu has imposed a 14-day quarantine to anybody coming into Israel, but it begins on Thursday, and she arrived yesterday.
So she's
so she got excused, huh?
So she made it by 2 days.
Wow.
Well, it's interesting. A friend of mine who was the voice of the L.A. Clippers for a long time, he and his wife are vacationing in Australia and New Zealand. Well, their plane was basically they just took all those people on that airplane and quarantined them for about 4 hours. They got out
after they got off the plane.
And but they were all checked thoroughly.
Well,
and then they let them in. I mean,
what gets me is as I said earlier, only 18,000 people have died in America so far this year of the regular flu. No publicity about that. Not a dime's worth. The CDC says the average year is somewhere between 50 and 60,000 people die of, quote, upper respiratory, which includes colds, flu, pneumonia, because one can flow into another. As Dan, you get a cold and you feel miserable. But boy, when it goes into your lungs, it can hurt.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Well, there used to be a hospital in southern Palm Beach County that was a quarantine hospital for tuberculosis. When you had it, that's where you went.
Yeah.
They used to quarantine a lot of more people than they do today. Back in the 40s and 50s, if there were certain things, you were just stuck in your house for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
340-1590, 340-1590. So by the way, I got a flipper.
What is a flipper?
I got a flipper.
Your tooth?
My tooth was gone, my front tooth. So I go into...
Another bar fight?
Yeah.
Oh.
So what happened is...
Another victorious loss.
So the dentist told me, he said, you had a root canal in that tooth. I said, I don't remember how long ago it was. It was probably 30 or 40 or who knows how many years ago. So the two just decided to leave one day, and then now you got to go in and get the post and all that, and $3,000 later. But in the meantime, they've got to take out the base of the tooth, which
Oh,
they
no.
did today.
Oh.
And I said, but I don't want a hole in my mouth, waiting 3 months to get the post in the tooth in. So they have what they call a flipper. It's a little tiny, like a partial.
Like a chiclet?
Well, it's partial. It glues, it sticks to your mouth like a regular piece of dentures. I'm purdy.
Oh, you're beautiful.
I'm beautiful again. Anyway,
Hey, it
it's
can
a flipper.
happen. I was at the movies once, and I was eating the popcorn, and
Uh-oh.
I
Yeah.
felt the tooth I had on the front tooth. I just felt it fall off somewhere.
Did it pass through, or
Did
you
you
don't
swallow
know?
I don't know
it?
where. I don't know. I didn't swallow it. I don't know what happened to it. Maybe I did. I don't know.
It could be in the popcorn bag
but,
still to this
yeah.
day.
And they resold it. Oh.
Well, it could be sitting in a city dump someplace, and that didn't deteriorate, but everything else around it did. That tooth is still there.
It's like a
Are we
crime
going?
scene.
Are we going to extend the medical show from 10 to 11? Is that what's going on?
Who is
since
this
I've been
guy?
gone?
Who is this guy?
It's
Oh,
up to
oh,
date stuff.
I have a real question for our insurance guru, Dan. Dan, I heard on the media yesterday that some travel insurance do not cover the coronavirus. Is that because it might be considered an act of God that they wouldn't cover that kind of sickness?
Well, I mean, every insurance policy, and I'm not going to try to dance around it, but every travel insurance policy is a wee bit different than probably the next one. And the reason I say that is there what we call a window, and a window is something that triggers the policy to actually go into effect. So, like, as you may or may not know, my Nancy and I, we were going to go to Amsterdam and some other places in about a month. We decided not to go. All right, so
You're going to Pahokee instead.
yeah,
right?
that's
Pahokee,
right.
yeah.
So
right. Belgrade.
the cruise line that I'm on, they have a thing that says, "Hey, you can cancel your cruise, and in fact, we will let you book another one." So we've already rebooked it for next year. I called my travel insurance policy, and they're going to let me cancel the one I have, and they're just going to transfer it to the new one. That's what that insurance company has
That
decided to
particular
do.
one, yeah.
So because it is a unique event, many insurance companies are doing different things. So it's, that's a hard question for me to answer. I know that, I'll give you an example. When we had 9/11, no insurance policies excluded terrorism. But the insurance industry said, we never intended for our insurance to cover terrorism. So after that, they now you must exclude it, or if you want it, you have to purchase it.
Yeah,
so this may trigger some other stuff in the future. I just don't know, Alan.
340-1590, 340-1590. Alan, you said it's an act of God. You kind of reminds me of Tevier in Fiddler on the Roof. And he says, God, I know we're the chosen people, but can't you choose somebody else next time? Do you remember that line in Fiddler
Yes,
on the
I
Roof?
do.
Yeah,
It came from China, right? Act of Buddha.
Like the Buddha.
Oh.
340-1590, and we got a caller. Ricky, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Yeah, how you boys doing there? I love your show, man. Big fan.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I'm worried about my money now. My wife made me buy this annuity,
Right?
and my name is on it, and her name is not on it. And I don't know. She's pressing me to put her on as a co-signature or co-person. I'm like, that's my money, but she's all worried about this. All of a sudden, this whole coronavirus you talking about. And
Ricky, let me
she's
tell
like,
you.
if I get,
Wouldn't he
if I
have a
get that from-
beneficiary on that,
Rick-
Joe?
Hey, Ricky,
No,
if you have
Ricky-
you have an annuity contract, right?
I do. She's worried about this coronavirus. She's like, if I get that from making love, I'm gonna be so mad at you, Ricky.
Well, Ricky,
What do I do?
I don't blame her. Here's what you have to do. You have a named beneficiary on these contracts. You can be the owner, but then you normally, when you wrote the thing, when you started it, you wrote down beneficiaries. You might have put 1, 2, or 3. You might have put your children. Were you married to somebody else when you got that?
Mr. Joe, I listen to you because I've been married multiple times.
Okay,
that's
then.
why I like listening to you for advice.
Ricky, here comes the worst advice you're ever going to see. You need to really quick find out if your
Who's your beneficiary, brother?
If your ex-wife is your beneficiary.
Which one of them?
Which one of them? You know, you could be in deep trouble when you listen. There's nothing like having a new wife kick your casket when you're dead.
Thanks, sir. I didn't know. You know what? I got that about. Oh, let me see. Look at here, like 10 years ago.
There you
I
go.
was married to another woman there.
You know what I'm saying?
There's the answer.
I mean,
sir.
I got to tell you, we
Yes, sir.
had Bulldog. You remember when Bulldog was still alive? I went to see him,
Yes.
and he had a pension plan with a company he no longer was with. And I just said, hey, Bulldog, did you ever change the beneficiary on that pension plan? And he goes, oh, my God, no. And I said, we called him up right then on the spot and said, yep, it was his ex-wife. Boy, Mary Beth was not happy.
But not to
Oh,
throw
my
a
God.
monkey wrench into this conversation, but depending on how your divorce was handled, in some cases, the ex-wife has been given court mandated for your pensions, for this, for that. So
If I were you, though, I wouldn't worry about that part.
Just get it changed.
I would get it changed right now. You call up the company. There's a phone number. Just call them up and say, I want to change the beneficiary. Can you email me, fax me, mail me the form? You sign it, put in the new name where it says, and if you run into any problem when you're doing that, you call us back, and I'll walk you through it.
and your new wife will be so happy.
And your new wife will say, okay, Ricky, you go ahead and die whenever you want now.
Well, thank you for that. And my wife and I were getting along all right. Then she found out I married one of them no Bible women with a vagina hat, and she goes, She got really mad. She goes, I want that money, so I will do that.
I will
She
do
was
Well, you bet.
disappointed in you.
I'm telling you, Ricky, I'm disappointed in you too, but that's okay.
It's in the past. It's in the past.
We got something in common, fellas.
We got something. Hey, listen, you and I. You know, the nice thing about having multiple wives, we can't afford a whole six-pack. We can afford one beer and we can share it.
Oh, I know that. I know that. They're crazy critters.
All right, Mom.
Well, have a good day.
Hey,
Thank you.
Ricky, suggestion for you, though. Have a closed casket funeral.
Yeah, right. We don't want
just in case.
We don't want darts.
To make sure he's dead.
340-15. But you know, it's funny that we say this. I have seen this happen time and time again. Life insurance contracts, annuities, pension plans, where they have named beneficiaries, and people are not advised to ever change them, and they don't think about it when they get married again. And you know, even as an agent, Dan, when somebody comes in to see me, I don't say, how many times have you been married, and how long you been married to this wife, and did you have something before? You never ask that question.
It's an uncomfortable question to ask in front of the spouse.
Yeah.
Is that even a legal question now?
Well, it's, you know, I don't know if it appears
The lawyer is nodding
it
his
might
head.
be the right thing to do
Yeah.
to protect what somebody wants. Like I said, if it hadn't been for the fact that I was sitting at Bulldog's house when we were going through, and he was telling me he used to work for Sprint, and he'd been gone for 10 or 15 years. He said, but he had a retirement plan. So we called up Sprint to see when he could get the money, and they had some kind of rules. And I said, by the way, who's the beneficiary? And looked it up, and it was his ex-wife. Well, you know, and if I
And
had...
that's who it should have been at the time.
Sure,
That's who
yeah.
it should have
Oh,
been.
yeah.
But you know, there's lots of other things you can look at, like I sell sometimes what's called the last to die life insurance policy. That means
The
when
what?
The last to die. That means
No.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
So when
really.
the first one dies, you don't get paid. When the second one dies, it's used like for estate taxes and stuff.
Yeah,
so,
and that's
all right.
okay.
So when the second one dies, they get paid.
It could be for the kids. You want to leave money to your kids, but
Yeah,
you don't want them to get it while you're
It's just the
alive.
title of it.
So you
just-
got
I know.
to watch that, and then sometimes
They
we'll
often
write.
called it second to die
That's
rather
what- well, I
than
call it
last.
well,
you know, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. So how about this? What if I sell a life insurance policy and add a spouse as a rider? We do that all the time.
Yeah.
All right. So now the spouse is a rider, but what if who is going to be the owner?
Yeah.
The owner doesn't have to be the named insured. They just
No.
have to have an insurable interest.
The key thing is this: little tiny things like this we take for granted because we do it all the time. It's like Dan said, it's kind of embarrassing. You don't ask a husband and wife sitting in front of you, how many times you've been married, and who is your ex-wife still your beneficiary? I mean, you don't just bring that up.
It would be an odd conversation.
Ricky, you got to thank your wife for thinking you might have the coronavirus.
And to get your affairs in order.
Get your after you get this signed and changed, she may want you to hang out with some corona people.
Now, see, with some of my life insurance policies, even though I am the insured, I have my wife as the policy owner.
Yeah.
So what if we got divorced? I couldn't change it because she's the owner.
Oh.
That's because his wife's smarter than him.
Whoa. Okay.
Hey, I'm telling you. Listen, you know what now?
That's why Carol bought the triple indemnity.
That's right.
Do you remember
Walk
the
carefully.
movie? You remember the movie Blind Date?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happened was she was talking to this Japanese woman who didn't understand any English, but she said, you're in the ladies' room, and she said, no speak at the English, and the girl says to her, she goes, in California, it's a community property state, you get 50% when you get divorced, and the Japanese girl goes, 50%.
Now, see, I had a lady come in, and she was obviously from, Mexico or someplace like that, and we're talking about insurance needs, and she says, can I get life insurance on my husband? And I said, well, he has to know. I said, you just can't buy it. She goes, oh, okay. Then she goes, well, what does it cover, like if he got killed in a car wreck or a bar fight
or stabbing?
Or something? I go, well.
He's been shot 6 times and didn't die.
And I'm thinking, where is she taking me with this conversation? I said, he has to be here. I have to ask all the questions. Yeah, that was the last I saw of her.
Do you remember when they used to do retail credits?
Oh, yeah.
But remember, you ever hear that word retail credit?
No.
It had nothing to do with credit. But what they did, this is before computers, they would literally go knock on neighbors' doors to check out your character to find out if you were a drug dealer or something.
No way.
Oh, yeah.
When was this? Back in the 50s or 60s?
60s, 70s, even
Really?
80s. Yeah.
Well, they still do that for certain levels of security clearances. They check out your background.
They got to really check it hard. And today with the power of the internet, things are a lot easier. But still, back then it was a pretty big deal. Now here comes a wife on the phone who's looking to make money on her husband's life insurance. I'll bet you anything. Hey, Helen, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Good morning. I'd like to make a comment about your show, please.
Go
I
ahead.
called in last week about refinancing my home.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in my home for more than 3 years to get my money back. But I spoke to Miss Loyd. She referred me to the East Coast Mortgage.
Right.
And John called me, and he and I came up with the answer that perhaps at this time it's not the right time to remortgage, even though the rates are low. I just wanted to thank him, thank your show for kind of answering some questions and settling me about refinancing another show.
Helen, you're wonderful. Thank you so much for that, because what we have tried to do, and Dan and I and Greg Fasula started these shows back in 2004, and our whole concept was we don't care about making money on any one person. What we wanted to do was make sure that we're doing the right thing for people, and Mike Paulus and Victoria Loyd are 100% on that same page. We go out of our way to make sure people understand and make an intelligent decision. So thank you, Lord, for Mike, for giving you good counsel, and thank you, Helen, for calling us and telling us.
That's okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
You
Bye.
too. You know what it is? Sometimes when you look at stuff, Joe, and you think, oh, that sounds like a great deal. I think
Right.
I'll do that.
Right.
Well, if that, like in Helen's case, to get something refinanced costs money sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's going to take you X number of years to recoup that for your monthly savings. It may not be worth it. So just because you can sell them the product
right.
doesn't mean it's the best thing for the client.
Not in their best interest. Just another case, just literally, my girlfriend now, she has a mortgage, just 4.5.
Operative word now.
Well, just don't.
Currently.
Today.
She's listening
That's
to the
today?
show. Greg, I know your home address, and I'm going to give it to her. She's got smoke bombs. Don't you worry about it all about it. Anyway, she has a mortgage, and some years ago, during the height of the bad recession, the lender allowed her to pull $30,000 off of the interest-bearing portion of the loan. So let's just say she owes $130,000 today. She only pays interest on $100,000. So the rate is 4.5% that she's paying on that 100. She's paying nothing on the 30. Okay. So her thing was, should I refinance? And I said, well, it's real easy. Let's do the math. If you did 3% on 130, the payment's almost the same, the amount of money, as it is at 4.5. It doesn't pay to incur the new expense
At 100%.
at 100%.
Right, right.
So, and the second part of the equation is, and Helen brought it up, what is there's a break-even point, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, if you refinance after you figure in the expenses. There are some regs that allow some loans not to go if it's more than 3 years or less than 3 years.
The recovery period.
Recover. Well, protecting the consumer, it's one of the things that we try to do is educate, but every once in a while the government actually does something good for people by putting in certain rules
To protect them.
Well,
Joe, that would be like you selling a 90-year-old person some kind of annuity that doesn't go into effect for 10 years.
Well, I love this one. I've seen these. I've called index annuities. You know, I dislike index annuities. They say we're going to give you a 12% bonus the first year, and then you're going to get paid forever. Well, people hear that 12% bonus, they get all excited. Then they've got a 10, 12, 15-year surrender charge starting at 24% the first year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some things that are just so unconscionable that Dan and you and I have talked about this. The insurance industry has regulators that supposedly license, and they inspect these different products, and they allow them to be sold. And you and I.
And it's unfortunate, Joe, because how many of us, including you and I, in my opinion, buy something with a 4 or 5 page, 6 page contract that read and understand every paragraph. 9 times out of 10, you sit there, look at the first page, trying to impress the guy who's sitting there waiting for you to sign it. You look at it for like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and you go, okay. And then you start signing all the pages and initial and everything. Because you don't do it.
I've had this said to me, Dan, and I know you've had it to you too. I've had clients say, Joe, we trust you. And I said, well, thank God you can, because you don't understand a word I'm talking about. Well, and it's true.
No, it's true.
It's true. I had one of the more brilliant guys, had 6 or 8 aeronautical patents. He worked for Pratt & Whitney, Sikorsky. They were paying him large sums of money, and they paid him tons of money retired tax-free rather than, because he didn't own the patents. They did. The man was a genius engineer. He didn't understand finances one word. He just glazed over. But it was called, hey, if you've got somebody doing the right thing for you, thank you, Lord, that's what happens. So when I look at some of I was with another client of mine, and she had a friend of hers who somebody was trying to sell a index life insurance and as an investment.
As an investment.
Yeah, don't you love these words?
Life insurance should never be viewed as an investment.
Never. Anyway, and it's also against the rules to do that. But some guys.
Oh, that's minor.
Yeah.
Well, here's something to think about. A lot of what I can call unscrupulous salesmen will sell a product over greed or fear.
The other side of the coin was, I said, okay, here's what happens. That contract has a cap, C-A-P, in it, where it can pay no more than X. She goes, well, he didn't say that. And I said, yeah, it's there. Well, can you look at it and show me? Well, here was 20 pages of print. Now, Dan, you and I know where to look for stuff like that. It took me about 5 minutes to find it. But it stood out like a sore thumb on the 7th page in the middle of the page, not high letters or anything, but it was there. So now you have to read 7 pages of fine print and understand what you read to find out the thing that's the big negative in the contract. So anyway, I just, one of the things that we have tried to do from day one, you and I and Greg Fasula, is to educate people on how to make intelligent decisions.
And just because it's not a product that I don't sell,
right?
So let's say somebody else sells it. That doesn't mean I'm not going to tell them that's where you need to go.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's in their best interest.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
It's funny, we have a lawyer on Fridays, and his whole show last week was on car contracts. And it was really intriguing. It was like, and he just was asking the people who called, do you read the entire contract?
No.
And I was kidding. I was kidding with him. I said, I never have. He said, wow, you're lucky. You haven't been scammed.
Well, the concept is this. Back again to dealing with somebody that you know. One of the things, Dan, you've been in Florida most of your life. I've been here since 1976. When I deal with any business, I like to see people been in business at least 5 years. They've been in business 10, 15. I'm real happy because this is, word of mouth, bad news goes a lot faster than good news.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you betcha.
And you watch people come and go.
And people come and they plan on going. They don't care who they scam. They're ready to go as soon as they get here. They're planning on leaving.
Well, and a good scam artist, I'm sure that's what they do. They can't stick around too long and make a living, right?
People catch up with them.
That's like these attorneys,
May I
Jump in.
Speaking of attorneys,
180 degrees and talk about one of the people on the Martek team.
Which person?
As you know, I had friends from Wisconsin staying with us for a few days.
And they went on the cruise with you.
Yes, and Victoria Loyd, after we got back, took my friends over a 2-day period, spent over 10 to 12 hours showing them properties without any commitment from them whatsoever. She may never close a deal with them, but yet that's the kind of person she is.
she also sold your house while you were gone. I thought was kind of neat.
You don't know that. But
You don't know that
Don't
yet,
you worry.
but-
That closing, the people gave you they gave you a 3-month period you can stay in the house. But don't worry about that part.
like a life estate.
Life is, but you better
Give
not
you a
live
life
too long.
estate.
One of the things that happens with Victoria now, honestly, this girl is not money motivated 1 second. What she does is work, and she does the right thing all the time, and whatever happens, that's just coincidental.
Well, Joe, we've all been taught, and I know it's kind of old school, but if you take care of the needs of others, your needs will be met and taken care of. And I believe that's a very true philosophy.
It's a little bit of what goes around comes
Well,
around.
You can say it a lot of different ways.
A lot of different ways.
But if profit is your motivator, that's going to come across.
It's going to come across. 340-1590, 340-1590. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the stock market.
And I just checked a few minutes ago. The Dow is currently down 1,150
Not bad.
points.
Not bad. It's
Not compared to the 2,000.
No,
it
that's
was
half
down
of
a couple-
2,000.
It's half, yeah.
That's getting better.
It just gave up yesterday's gain, but that's what happens in volatility. And talk to your financial advisors. There are ways of protecting your portfolio so you don't have these massive losses like we did in 08, 09. As a matter of fact, Joe, you're very conservative, and as far as not only in finance but your politics seem to tend toward the conservative
That's because we don't
side.
have Greg here today.
That's
He's
a
probably
shame.
happy today. He has some winner
Yeah,
today.
Bernie got
But
North Dakota or
Since
something,
we're
right?
having a potpourri show and jumping all over the place, it looks like Mr. Biden pretty much has it locked up for the Democratic nomination.
But is it bad of us to point out what appears to be like early signs of dementia that people have called out? And do you think like they wanted Trump to have a psychological analysis because they all said he was losing his mind early on?
I remember that.
Will
with-
they
with Trump.
require that of him? Who knows?
Let me just tell you.
Is it fair of me to ask?
You know what I look forward to, and I figure Uncle Joe, he's like a favorite uncle. He's got a good smile. He's just a nice guy. When Trump gets him on stage and they have a debate, I just think it's going to be a debacle.
It'll only be 7 minutes. That's as most he can talk.
But have you noticed with Joe, though, when he does the one-on-ones with, like, the network anchors, he's really in control. And it's like when he's doing these speeches, he gets wound up,
Do you think
and
they
then
give
kinda
him the
loses
answers
himself.
on those
I will tell you.
one-on-ones
Can you?
before they meet?
I have not. Have you seen any of these
You think the
anchors
handlers give
that
them
are
questions?
conservatives that are interviewing Uncle Joe? I don't think they have one of those.
Did you see that thing with him with that union worker
Yeah.
with the
yeah.
guns?
He got a little
He
upset.
got a little upset with that
Yeah.
man.
You know what? It's an interesting thing, but Uncle Joe gets the nomination. That's listen. Joe's a conservative. Martek sitting right here, a conservative. Dan's a conservative. Alan's sitting here as a conservative. If Trump got defeated by Uncle Joe, I wouldn't be that upset because I don't think Uncle Joe would rock the boat for the next 4 years.
I'm not concerned about Joe. I'm concerned about his running mate.
Kamala?
Whoever it will be,
Kamala?
that's gonna dictate, I think, a lot.
No, Cortez. What's her name?
Well, as long
Oh,
as
AOC.
AOC.
let's hope it's not,
She'd have the dagger in his back.
let's hope it's not Hillary.
Well, now,
Yeah, I know. I
how
heard
about
the
that
rumor.
Hillary
How about that rumor?
documentary that just came out?
Don't you wonder?
That is like really,
Yeah.
She's tough on
Unbelievable.
Bernie. She was tough on Bernie.
yeah, but extremely tough on her husband. And it's like, ooh,
Just
is this
a-
come back? Come
Listen,
back?
it's going to be interesting, but the bottom line is Uncle Joe, I think, running against our boy Trump in a debate, I just think it'd be a very sad debacle. But that's okay.
You think he'll get mad and ask him to step outside?
Well, and that would make it more interesting. Now,
Do a push-up contest?
340.
Then you have the guy, what's that, World Wrestling Federation come in?
Oh yeah, that big
Let's get
white-haired guy.
ready to rumble.
340-1590, 340-1590. Well, anyway, Alan, you were leading into the market. The market is extremely depressed. I've only had one client pull out, and so far he's gloating like crazy because the market stayed down and he's saved himself a bit. On the other hand, the few others, and I mean very few, that have called me said, Joe, what do you think? And I said, hey, I'm buying more this week. They said, why? And I said, you ever heard of buy low, sell high?
Sure.
Look at Warren Buffett. Every major billionaire that's out there saying, hey, now's the time to get in.
And Cook
Yeah,
immediately said, I'm buying my own Apple stock.
yeah.
He said, I'm buying it back.
The key thing is this. It's bargain time. Now, here's what I've said this to people. Do you think America is going to go out of business? Well, no. Do you realize that for 90 years, the Standard & Poor's 500, which is 500 of America's biggest companies, called the blue chips, have averaged 9.8% per year for 90 years. Now, last year was 30. This year could be down 10. Year before was down 6. Year before that was up X, and I forget what it was. But the key is this. We're going to have bumps along the road, either caused by politics, by disease, by wars, by something. But America is not going out of business.
So how about this, Joe? What if I am in my 70s, in my 80s? I'm getting there.
He's looking at me
And I
when
say,
he says that.
you know what? I understand all that, but I really don't want to be riding the market highs and lows. Can you find me something that maybe I can just get what's a halfway decent rate of return and forget about this? Is something like that available?
Well, here's what, and remember a few years ago when we were all thinking the market was coming to an end and everything was bad.
I do.
Politics. You and I were saying, hey, it's bad. And that's before Trump
It's
got in.
It's over.
Yeah.
Well, what happened is, and I've talked about these things forever, are debt instruments. Debt instruments. Debt instruments means not common stock. Debt instrument means I loan you money, Greg, and you sign a note. Right?
Do I have to pay
and
it back?
you agreed. Yeah, well, I wouldn't do it with you because you run a radio station, but that's okay.
You're questionable character.
But I trust your wife, but that's different. Anyway, so you sign a note and says, Joe, you're going to pay me back on a certain date, and you're going to pay me 6% interest. Well, I've got some monster companies that are paying 5 and 6% on their debt instruments, and if I watch them during this debacle with everything going haywire, they're not changing much. One way or the other, they don't change much because they're not owning a company.
That's intriguing.
You're not stock. So when I say to somebody that you just said it, I look at them and they say, Joe, I'm 80 years old. I say, what are you looking to accomplish? Well, really, I just want to leave my kids money. Well, then leave it in the bank.
Well, how about if I said I want to make enough money to pay my bills?
Okay, so let's start looking at your bank is going to pay you half or one. Well, now they're going to go.
You better have a gazillion dollars.
They're going to go to zero interest. supposedly this month, when the Fed is supposed to lower again.
Joe, in 08, 09, it was a real estate crisis, but this isn't a real estate crisis.
No.
So what about a real estate investment trust?
Well, that was my next subject. So what I look at people at 5 and 6%, if you're content with that, now you're going to be able to sleep at night because the values are going to change minimally, very, very little. It's understand this, they are not stock.
So how long are you locked in those things?
You're not locked at all. You can buy it today and sell it today. I mean, they're 100% liquid. Now, let's talk about this for 1 minute. Let's say it pays 5%, and the share prices are all issued at $25 per share. Now, that share price can go down to $24.50 or up to $25.50 based on people buying and selling. So let's say it's at $24.50 and you get in and it's paying 5% at 25. Well, you're actually going to get more than 5% return on your money because you bought it a little bit below par. Got it? So the key thing that we look at on these things is how long are you going to be in, and are you looking to get that income? And if that's what you want, this is a great thing where you know you can pay your bills, and then one day you die and you're going to leave your kids your money. I like them very much. Now, go into Alan's subject, REITs, R-E-I-T, Real Estate Investment Trust. The ones that I deal with are mortgage ones. They're not bricks and mortar. Why not bricks and mortar? Well, number one, retail scares me to death right now.
Shopping centers.
Shopping centers
malls.
are a problem. So I don't like those. What I like are mortgages. Now, what happens is the world is not doing anywhere near as well as America, so everything I deal with is, quote, in America. I want to have mortgage companies that are in America. When it says trust on it, normally the rule is they have to pay out 90% of their profits every year. So all the ones I deal with are paying 10 to 12% dividend, and they pay every 3 months. So let's say it's 3% every 3 months. Okay? Now, Alan, here's what has happened. These things are owned tremendously by pension funds, by all kinds of exchange-traded funds and mutual funds. And what happens is they have these trigger points that these companies have. When a bell rings, they automatically will sell 1 million shares, or they'll automatically buy 1 million shares. So right now, the prices have gone down pretty dramatically, 10 to 12% down. Well, guess what? I'm buying more, and I've got a few clients who are buying more, because now that where it was paying 10 to 12, now it's paying 13, 14, 15% because I get to buy it lower.
Whoa.
Now, wait a minute. We have had actual quarters where the price of the share, let's say you paid $10 for it. Now it's worth $12. If you sold it, how much is the profit?
20%.
Wow.
But do you care about making 3% in a quarter when you can make 20?
Hardly.
No kidding.
Hardly.
So I tell my clients, they say, now, I was talking to a nurse today getting my tooth stitched. She was a very sharp girl. And I just said, hey, not everybody do I talk about making them buying and selling. You have to be relatively sophisticated because I don't want to drag a person that's in a nursing home or like Alan, he's kind of old over there. I want to,
Because you get paid. And you don't want them to think you're getting churning and getting paid for doing wrong things.
I can't believe you get paid.
Well, here's the other side of the
He
coin.
used to be a philanthropist, but now he's gone broke.
I lost.
And he
My
has to
wife
go back
took
to
all my
work.
money. I can't afford to be a
All those wives.
Well, think about what happens is this. When I tell everybody, I charge a commission when you buy, I charge nothing when you sell. Okay, why? Well, if you sell and you made a profit, the odds are good you're going to come back to me. So let's say I made you 10% in 1 3-month period. That's called 40% annualized.
It's not enough.
And you say, okay, Joe, you're going to sell it for 10, but I want to buy again. I got to pay you 2%, right? And I said, yeah. You netted 8. Are you going to complain? A little bit, but not much. Because I don't want to pay you. I don't want to pay you anything. And I said, well, then you need to stay in the bank, or go to deal with somebody that doesn't pay attention to you.
Well, that's a repeat customer. I
Yeah.
mean, and listen, Joe, every business thrives on that.
No kidding.
If you had a good experience, you're going to come back.
That's exactly right.
Nothing wrong
So
with that.
right now, opportunity time, and I've got my peer group of people in the business, not necessarily the same broker dealer, and we share back and forth with experience. People that have been in the business 30, 40 years, hey, they have a lot of accumulated experience. And sometimes, and even some people that are not in the business, but they are very successful traders on their own account. I have that, what I consider part of my peer group, because sometimes these people do a better job than any broker because they're watching their own account every day, all day. That's their hobby. Well, those are the best investors in the world. So the REITs, Alan, just to go back through it, the timing to me is perfect for anybody that wants to get in right now. Can they go down more? Yep. Are they going to go up more? Can't guarantee it, but the odds, history says America's not going out of business. We will weather this storm. And let me just go back into the coronavirus. It's a virus, and the virus usually runs its course by the time spring hits here, which is around the corner.
And listen, a bull market and a bear market runs its course as well.
They all do. They all do.
Or they always have.
340-1590, 340-1590, and it looks like we have Mike on line 3. Hey, Mike, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Good morning.
Good morning, my
Hey,
man.
Mike.
How you doing?
Speak into your phone, Mike.
Pardon?
No, Greg is picking on you because his hearing is going.
Oh, my. Well, I hope I'm coming through.
Very low, Mike.
Mike, but we like you very low.
Oh, I know it. Everybody does. Now, I'm calling in today with a pop quiz from the movie world.
Oh, okay.
Are you ready to name the movie?
Go ahead.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Uh-oh, that's Alan.
Somebody, come on.
Whatever you do,
don't fall asleep. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not a big movie buff.
Was that what a Stephen
Give
King?
me a
Is
hint.
that a Stephen King movie?
It sounds like it.
This was from way back in the 80s. A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't know. I never watched
it.
it.
It had to be one of those horror flicks, right?
You have to feel sorry for Mr. Biden. You know, everybody has had or has in their family someone with the kind of problem he has. So it's pretty painful for us to watch him going through what he's doing.
Well, listen. On the other hand, Mike, my side of the row is the conservative side, and I just think that they're going to donate Uncle Joe and our boy over here on the other side.
But do you feel it's right, Joe, that his handlers and the party are pushing him, knowing that what we suspect they already have confirmed?
But however, they look at who are we going to have as an alternative. Even the Democrats are scared of Bernie.
Yes. And now Bloomberg, a lot of people don't know, is putting huge money in and setting up headquarters where they never were for Biden. He's really going to make a difference and make sure Biden is the strong guy.
Yeah, they've opened dozens in California
who's
right
going to
now.
be Biden's running mate? Maybe Bloomberg will come on his ticket.
Well, see, I always thought that whoever the Democratic Party chose for their nominee was just a sacrificial lamb because they knew he was going to get beat come November. So I'm just telling you what I think.
Yeah.
I think it didn't matter who they sent out. They were just going to throw somebody out there and wait for another 4 years and find somebody else because currently there is nobody on the Democratic side who's under the age of 70 who they are going to, send out to meet with Trump.
Yeah.
But
right.
if you're a Democratic pollster, you're looking at if this economy keeps sliding down, we've got Trump. Because that's the only thing keeping him in the
That's the only
the chair.
and that's true.
Well, I don't believe that. I don't think the economy is the only thing. I think there's been a lot of promises he's made and a lot of things he's done. So the economy was just the icing on the cake for his presidency. This is just my opinion. So if you think that if the economy goes bad, he's easy pickings, you're fooling yourself.
Well, I don't necessarily say easy pickings, but understand this. 95% of the people out there are not what you're going to call sophisticated, educated voters. They vote their pocketbook. When you're working and making good money, you're happy with whoever's running the show. You remember when Bill Clinton was in and we had those great years, but Gingrich and the plan put together their 100 points, et cetera, to get things done? Who got all the credit? Bill Clinton. So whoever's on the point is going to get the credit or the blame, no matter what happens. So if the economy starts going backwards, I got to tell you, no matter what, the regular Joe lunch pail guy and his wife, like my mother to this day is a Democrat. If Bill Clinton ran again, she'd come out of the grave to vote for him. you know.
Oh, my mom.
Well, she
would,
still
too.
might,
Yeah.
depending on which Clinton runs.
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
It all depends. If she lives in Chicago or Detroit,
She's
she
voting.
will be
She's
voting.
still
this time.
voting, right?
She's only been dead 30 years. Oh.
Not bad, not bad.
The greatest influence Mr. Trump has had, really, for the future are the judges.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
We agree with all that. However, I'd like to see him get reelected because I'd like to have 4 more good years of economics, you know?
Oh, he's going to win so easily, it's going to be just unbelievable.
But Mike, don't get overconfident and don't think that your vote doesn't count. Everyone needs to vote who feels that way. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
you can lose. So be cognizant of that, brother.
Yeah, see, the Republicans don't load people up on buses and bring them down.
Well,
the
I
road.
sure have seen the Dems do that last time around.
I know.
I watched it.
340-1590. Hey, Mike, thanks for listening and thanks for calling.
Bye now.
Bye, Mike.
You know what impressed me with Trump was a meeting with the drug companies this week. And he said there are 7 major drugs still being manufactured in China, and they're going to hold them. And he said, bring those back. And I thought, okay, this is cool. This
is
you
cool.
know,
It is
and
cool.
We need to control, just like we do with oil now.
Hey, let me
we
tell you,
need to control our
drug
destiny.
our drug destiny.
Yes.
And we should buy no parts for our military that come from a potential foreign adversary and they go,
Well,
we're not sending you that widget you need because
good luck
Well,
there.
wasn't it Trump yelling at Germany saying, what the devil are you doing buying your oil from Russia?
Yeah.
I mean, it was the same thing. You got an enemy, a totalitarian or communistic thing, and you're dealing with them. Why? You know, you're helping these people stay in business, stay in power. Why? It just makes no sense. 340-1590, 340-1590. Alan.
Yes.
We need some parting words from a seasoned traveler.
Of wisdom.
Well, I will tell you this.
Don't get on a cruise ship. No.
After 3 weeks of being on a cruise ship, anybody who tells me I'm full of ship is absolutely right.
You had all the ship you can handle.
I had all the ship I can handle, that's for sure.
What do you think, Greg? Should we say goodbye?
I think that's time.
Bye, folks.
Hey, until next week, thanks for listening. Thanks for calling. Bye.